Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Jay and Timbo. Tim, what's up, gentlemen?
Man, we just talked about, are we going to call him Timbo or Tim? And you immediately screw it up.
Well, I'm going to call him Tim, all cast, but he goes by Timbo on the interwebs. So I figured it would be appropriate to throw the alias out there the first time so that people know who you are.
Okay.
You left someone out. I clearly brought Chewbacca with me. I don't know why we're not talking about that.
Yeah, actually, I was meaning to ask about that. That's kind of amazing. How'd you do that?
Well, it's real easy, Kyle. Instead of doing a picture background, I just did a video one.
I didn't even know you could do a video background for what it's worth.
And now Chewie's right there.
So, wow, this must be explored further. I apologize if I'm looking down a lot. I'm actually painting as I'm talking. This is a wiki that
I think we're gonna get to that in a little bit.
Well, couldn't even get his full attention this week. I'm like,
I used to paint all the time on the cast. The difference is we didn't have a camera, so nobody knew.
When was the last time we didn't have a camera?
I mean, it's been
like 2 years.
Yeah, it's been like 2 years, but
all right.
Anyway, today we're going to talk a lot about Skirmish because Tim just wrote a Skirmish article and was your Skirmish tournament this past weekend or is it next weekend?
Upcoming.
Okay. So you have a Skirmish tournament that you're prepping for. Been playing a lot of Skirmish, so we're going to hit some of that. You do have the Kashyyyk wave in Canada.
We do.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we'll hit some. We got SoCal Open this weekend, so we'll hit that briefly, and then the same weekend is Invader League Elims, so we will also talk about that. But first, you got some housekeeping for us, Jay?
Housekeeping. Yeah, I do. It's gonna be real short this week, Kyle. Real short. So, talking about the Kashyyyk wave in Canada. I would like to talk to you about Patreon. The reason those two are connected was because last week-ish, or the week before, we did a live Q&A, and Mr. Tim joined us and actually showed off the sprues and some of the minis and stuff from the Kashyyyk wave on our live Q&A. And that's the kind of content we give you on the Fifth Trooper Patreon, is behind-the-scenes look at our houses, at Timbo's sprues, and, that sort of stuff. And so if you like supporting or listening to the podcast or reading the blog, Patreon helps pay for those. And that's how we do it. And you get all this extra special stuff for joining too. So Patreon, do it now. I know you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to do it, but I need you to log in right now, go over to Patreon and sign up. You could do it for as little as $1 a month. It's crazy. Just do it.
Jay's clearly trying to keep this as short as possible. And the other thing we got going on is we got Stormtide, right? And so a couple
What's
things
that, Mike?
Stormtide, it is a unofficial Legion narrative campaign that we here at the Fifth Trooper develop and send out. And so we are in month 3 of this campaign, and month 3 boxes are going out like literally as we're recording this / already have to some extent. And what that means for all you wonderful people out there is that the international shipments have also shipped this month. So all you awesome international friends have basically gotten the first 3 boxes are out the door. And so you should be getting them.
Yeah, you guys have been waiting for so long, and we really appreciate that. And so that's what we appreciate about you. And so we're going to send that out very soon. Actually, by the time you guys hear this, it'll already be out.
Yeah, for sure.
So
if
by soon I meant
some
a number of
gone
hours.
Out, and whatever hasn't gone out yet will have gone out by the time this is live. So really excited about that. We've got some awesome stuff in next month that's we're really excited to talk about, as well as we had some add-ons that are spoilerific. Go up on the website. So I'm not going to talk a ton about it, but
we
if you're
wanted
interested,
to, but Kyle told us we had to keep it short this time. So sorry, guys. We wanted to tell you about all the cool stuff, but Kyle said we weren't allowed to. So here we are.
Blame Kyle. He killed the fun.
But you know what? You could probably tune into After Dark if you want to support our Patreon to hear that, right?
We definitely talk about Stormtide all the time. And I guess to replug Patreon, since Kyle brought it up, that is a great place to get Stormtide info if you're into that sort of thing. We plugged it a ton on the last one.
Get away from the heavy hands of Kyle Dornboss and keeping us restricted to time on this.
So with that being said, Tim, where can people find you?
Well, as probably people know, I do write for the Fifth Trooper blog, so I have many, or at this point, a fair few number of articles up there. And then I also on Twitch. I haven't streamed since last Invader, but as Single Elims are coming up, I'm probably going to get back into doing some streaming, and probably over the Christmas holidays or winter holidays, maybe get some more streaming in, and that is at Timbo 8700 on Twitch. So come hang out, have fun.
Well, gee, I might just do that. Come over and have some fun, Tim, if that's what you're promising.
Well, I don't know if you'll have fun, but I sure will.
Oh, well, no, I'm not going to come.
Well, judging by your track record of how much you love Invader League, Jay, I'm not sure that streams for you.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of Invader League, this is going to be a really long section. I'm just kidding. Invader League starts this weekend.
Are we kicking into the news without doing, since we skipped housekeeping drop, we're going to skip the news drop too?
Yeah. We're trying to keep it short.
All right. And news drop space, go.
Welcome to In the News.
All right.
What a mess. Sorry, Tim.
Tim, it's pretty much always like this.
Yeah.
As soon as your voices started talking, I'm like, oh, it's time to go get some models out or go find something else to do while I'm listening.
Yeah. Busy time, yeah. Kyle, tell us all about Invader League. I'm dying to hear about it.
All right, so it starts on the 23rd. The Kashyyyk wave is in the mod, so we will be playing with all the Wookiees and the spider droids and the Magna Guards and the whatever else is in that wave. Fluttercraft, Snail Tank, ISP. It's a lot of things. Yoda, Super Tax. Is that it?
That is a lot of things.
Did you say new Wookiees? I don't know.
I did say Wookiees, which is really like 2 different units, 3 different units, because you have the Gar normal Wookiees, then you have the shooty Wookiees for both Gar and Rebels, and then you have the Wookiee Chieftain and Chewbacca. So it's really 4 units of Wookiees.
And the Fluttercraft.
And the Fluttercraft, which is, yes, a support unit, but piloted by Wookiees. So that's 5 Wookiee units, plus a heavy for Republic and Yoda. And then, obviously, we're Separatists getting a lot of stuff too. So that's all going to be legal for elims. That also means the upgrades like Burst of Speed are going to be legal. Yet to be seen if, I guess, if the points drop in the next few days, those could also make it in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? Like at this point, who knows?
I mean, it seems a little bit like they're taking like a SoCal Open approach. Like, if they drop it at the hour, at 0 hour, they're still going to be in, which that sounds
tough.
It sounds like they're going to get a lot of lists that are wrong if that happens. But we'll see. As it was, we had to make quite a few corrections and stuff to like round robin lists in a normal list drop situation. So we'll see. It'd be nice if we're going to get them, if we just get them like, we record this on Monday, so tomorrow, Tuesday, and then.
Jeez. Yeah, I guess I have to come up with a list in like the next 3 days, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Gee whiz. All right. I haven't even thought about it really.
I have.
I'm gonna be real relaxed the next couple of days. Just taking my time, not thinking about lists.
Must be nice.
I do have a November 6th tournament that's going to be kind of competitive, so that'll be interesting.
What are you running? Do you know yet?
I am between a couple things. I think I'm going to do it's going to be double heavy. It's either going to be double tank, double E-web, or I may pull out a double T47 list for it. So one of the two.
Double T47.
Yeah. Gonna go against my Empire heritage and play Rebels for one tournament.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Hey, I have a long Rebel track record, for the record. But yes, I am. This is one of the things I'm currently working on. This is a second T47. Yeah, that's what I'm bringing to SoCal, unless we get a points update and that list is illegal before SoCal, which is possible. Because it has all of the good. Basically, it's a Rebel. Like, how many silly Rebel units can I cram into one list? It does not have a bus in it, because I can only take 2 heavies. But it is double T47, 3 Wookiees, R2, and then like a bunch of naked Rebel troopers and stuff.
Lord, it sounds like a nightmare to go against.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Sounds fabulous. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. The one that I posted is exactly 800 points, because apparently I'm bad at red player. So I need to practice. I mean, it's a fact. I'm bad at red player. It's objectively true. So yeah,
I like it. Good for you.
Yeah, we'll see. I got a lot to paint in the next how many days. I mean, I've already got 3 colors on everything, so like at the end of the day, I could just throw it in a box and I'd be fine. But it'd be nice if it didn't look terrible.
Yeah, isn't that always the way? You know, you're like, I got 3 colors on here. Like, legally, I can bring this, but you're like, man, this just doesn't look good. I got to keep going. People are going to judge me.
Yeah, I mean, technically, like this is a Wookiee right here. Like, he's got 3 colors on him.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's essentially like a base coat with the airbrush and then a wash, and that's all I've done so far. So they look pretty awful. We'll see how much I get done. I got a pack for my kids too, because I'm bringing them partially away with me. So
Ambitious.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. But my wife gets a kid-free weekend, so.
Well, that's the price to go to the tournament, I suppose. So
yep.
You paid it, and here we go.
Yep. Mike and Tim, you guys got any early Elim list thoughts?
Well,
that you would be willing to share?
I mean, we could all reveal this and just get hammered, but I had to come up with. I did all my skirmish list thinking too, because my skirmish tournament is on the same day as Elim starts. So I have now finished my skirmish preparation, but that was fun, sort of kind of learning a new format / playing a bunch of new format while also trying to think of what am I going to play for Elims. And I think I have like 2 or 3 options that will all depend on points / what's in there, but now I know what's in there. So I think I'm down to 2 options at this point.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably like the first time that this is the first time I feel like it doesn't matter almost. Like I don't know. I'm just like I'm like whatever. Like
whoa.
I'm a little bit jaded. Like I could make a decision today and like tomorrow like I will feel bad that decision can't be used anymore potentially, you know. So I'm probably gonna wait till the wire to make any decent decision, because the minute I make a decision will be the minute that the points changes come out. So maybe, I guess, for the sake of the Legion community, I should make a decision.
I was gonna say, and a million voices cried out in joyful bliss that Mike's about to make a decision. And
yeah. I don't normally I'm pretty I'm pretty like nailed down on a list ahead of time, or at least close to, refining and stuff like that. But I don't know. This is like this is either so there are two scenarios, right? Either this is like the last death throes of the current meta, or it's like the wild, wild west of the new meta. And in either scenario, like I don't find it that interesting because there's not really a good, I don't know. We either know what's good already, in which case it's not very interesting, or we have no idea what's good, in which case it's interesting, but you don't have any like information to really base your decisions off of outside of past metas. So yeah, I don't know.
But even okay, all right. I'm going to challenge you on this, Mike, because even with the Kashyyyk wave being available, you think you already know what's good and what's no points changes, no erratas, just adding all these new units. How many units did we just name? Like at least a dozen, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in my understanding of what a unit can do on the battlefield before I actually see it like play, frankly.
I mean, you sound confident. That's how I would define it. Yeah. It's
I mean,
confidence.
I mean, like I feel pretty confident that I called Anakin was pretty terrible, and here we are, and
Well-
I'm pretty
So-
confident there will be things that those units change, but I don't think any of the things that they change are super unforeseeable.
Okay, well, what are those things?
Man, this is a news segment, guys.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, I guess. All right. So, should we just go through the list?
The news is we're challenging you. Now let's
I mean,
do
the
it.
fact of the
No.
matter is, every list ever is going to need some way to deal with melee threats. With Wookiees and 2 factions and like multiple ways to get them there, like you're gonna have to deal with 12 hit point Wookiee units charging your lines consistently. I think that makes clones a lot worse, or at least clones without lightsabers. And I also think, I think just general clone gun lines are in a much worse place. I think the Fluttercraft is very interesting from a design space standpoint. I think it's either not going to really change the meta at all, or it's going to make like a clone fire support combo-y thing real. It's sort of in the it's either gets there or it doesn't camp, sort of like the Saber Tank list that Mr. Tim here orchestrated. Like that list is like the Saber Tank either makes it worth it or it falls flat on its face, right? And I think most of the time in that list it's worth it, but I think that remains to be seen with the Fluttercraft. I think Magna Guard are gonna make it so that the full meta that is gonna play with burst of speed probably waters down most Jedi, depending on how many Magna Guard we see. Man, what other units are there? Is the Snail Tank legal?
Yep.
Okay, I think we're gonna see people doing bus shenanigans with the Snail Tank, or at least trying to. Whether they're successful at it, I think will be an open question. But I fully suspect CIS players will try the double bus deal with Snail Tanks. Again, I think it probably just does it worse. So kind of an extension of the bus meta. Yoda is pretty similar in function to Kenobi. I think he's got some neat tricks that will probably differentiate that list from a standard Kenobi star. But overall, I think it's pretty similar and probably just worse than a clone gun line. What else we got?
Tactical droids.
Spiders.
Super tax and spiders. Okay, cool. So super tactical droids, I expect to probably replace a lot of tactical droids, at least in lists that don't have Jedi Sith in them. I could see if you're running Sith, you might want to go for the regular tac droid if you're trying to save some points. But overall, I don't think those lists are going to change a ton, with maybe the exception of The snipers in them getting much better because their AI will be turned off. I also think that the DSD spider droid is gonna make CIS gun lines like I think the lists that were like triple stab CIS things before are just gonna be like, get rid of those stabs. Let's take some dwarf spider droids, and they're gonna get a hell of a lot better. I mean, like they no longer really, I think, functionally need to bid for blue player, though they probably will. And I think the amount of firepower they bring at you that is resilient is increased by several layers of magnitude. I expect the spider droids to be a lot better than stabs, personally.
I think as far as the spider droids are concerned, they're good at different things than stabs. They will definitely, I expect you to see the most of the various spider droid types. I expect you to see the most ion spiders.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we're in a vehicle meta, and anytime you face an opponent with a droid trooper, which is R2D2 or a separatist player, even if they don't have vehicles, your ion's still going to be useful. So I think if you're playing separatist and you're not bringing ion spiders, you're going to be pretty disadvantaged against a separatist player that is. You could see it a little bit like we had with the Tauntaun meta, where the list that Tauntauns were best against was other rebels that didn't have Tauntauns. And I think it's possible you see a little bit of that with spider droids. I hope I'm wrong.
No, I think I don't think you're anywhere close to wrong. In fact, I think this is going to be worse.
I think so too.
From a mirror faction mirror perspective.
Yeah.
If you've got spiders and your separatist opponent doesn't, it's just going to be like you're literally going to have units that are effectively panicking every turn because they're shut down with ion tokens. Yeah,
it's going to be real bad. I think so. We'll see. I think separatist.
And the dwarf spider droids too. They're throwing 6 dice. You put the aim programming on them. Put cloning beside 2 of them, and then they're shooting 6 dice with 2 aims each with precise 2. That's pretty good against anything, not just.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like the ion token is just like a bonus at that point.
Yeah.
They're basically like a death trooper squad. I mean, minus a die, but they're gonna probably roll 6 hits, right? Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna be really good. I think out of all of the units that we just went over, I think the spider droid probably changes. Maybe the spider droid and the Wookiees are probably the most influential units I think that are hitting the table this wave. But yeah, I mean, with all those things said, I still think that the meta really fundamentally doesn't change that much. Like most of those variables are already in the equation. Like Wookiees are in Rebels, and I think the Rebel Wookiee lists I think are probably going to be more oppressive than the Gar ones, anyways.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I've been thinking a lot about Wookiee lists, and every time I make a Gar Wookiee list, I'm like, I just want this to be a Rebel Wookiee list.
Yeah, right. But which I don't. It kind of goes back to that. I just like wish there was like a Gar Wookiee core unit or whatever. But just having to take 52-point clones over 40-point Rebel troopers is a big deal.
Yeah.
So all of that, I guess, is to say that I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, that's how we got here.
Yeah.
And that's the news, folks.
Right? Those are the quick hits for how I feel about what's going to happen with the current meta.
Yeah, we should actually parking lot this conversation because our main topic after Skirmish is the Kashyyyk wave units.
Yeah. That's why I was interested.
I got
all right, I guess we're doing
I
this now.
know.
Boom,
Okay.
nailed it.
Yep.
Saving time already, Kyle.
We'll
That's
circle
what you
back
wanted.
because Tim's actually been playing with the physical copies of said units. So I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that once we circle back. But let's hit Skirmish real quick.
It's time for Legion 101. Class is in session.
Tell us what Skirmish is, Tim. I'm being 100% honest here. I have never played a game of Skirmish, not a single time.
Cool.
So enlighten me.
So the quick elevator pitch is it's a smaller game of Legion that's 500 points played on a 3x3 board instead of 6x3. And basically it's a little less strategically interesting, but a lot more, not a lot more, but a lot of the gun and fighting and like smashing and bashing of a regular Legion game all packed into a smaller board. So it gets very frantic very quickly.
It feels, and I don't mean this to come off as a criticism of the format, but it feels like a little bit more of just like a pure slugfest and less about the positioning than the full version.
Yeah, like so in a standard game of Legion, like you're doing probably 3 or 4 terms of like strategy and setup. And then it's sort of like, especially in like a game of key positions, for instance, you're doing a lot of setup, a lot of moving around each other until it all comes together at the end. Whereas in Skirmish, because everything is so close together, you probably do like you deploy, then you do turn 1, and then you're like in it. So your sort of overall strategy needs to be kind of complete in deployment and turn 1. And then you need to just execute where your units are for the rest of the game. The slightly more fun thing about it too is like in 3 hours, you can get 2 games of Skirmish in instead of just 1 game of Legion. So as like I love to use Skirmish for teaching new players, or like I want to show a person one specific aspect of Legion. So I have a friend who I'm training as my Padawan in Legion. Like, so every time we play, I'll bring a different little archetype of list. So like, oh, I want to show you how Obi-Wan Kenobi works. So I bring it to a skirmish list, and then Obi-Wan gets in, does this thing, and then we can re-rack, and he can play a second game after like an hour. And then he starts learning how to counter that much quicker. Whereas in standard Legion, you really can only get 1 game of like a practice game in an evening instead of like 2, sometimes even 3 games of Skirmish.
I like that point a lot, because I find, particularly when like teaching people how to play the game, you've kind of got to go through like 2 hours of motions before you can even like start to teach them why things they did were wrong, or you know, like or to have their Kenobi do the cool thing, right? You know, whereas if you're playing a smaller game, you can kind of get to the meat and potatoes a little earlier.
Yeah, the overall strategy and setup that needs to happen in the first couple turns doesn't happen. So there's a lot of big strategy decisions that don't need to be made, that if you make them incorrectly, you're just not going to get a good practice game in later. Does that cover the meat and potatoes?
It does. Tell us sort of the more specifics about the format with like the points and the battle cards and stuff like that.
So it's 500 points. And there is same battle card setup as standard games of Legion. The difference being that there is only 4 of each category right now. So instead of the 8 of each category in standard Legion, there's only 4, which makes it nice for like a tournament setting. Everyone's deck is the same, so you don't really need to bid. And it's just sort of straight up, everyone knows everything. It's easier to teach turn 0 a little bit because everyone knows everything that's in turn 0. There's no sort of hidden information on that point. The other slight difference also, your army composition. So you can only have 1 commander, 1 operative, 4 core units, 2 special forces, 2 support, and then 1 heavy. So it just sort of brings all the maximums down a little bit. Also brings the minimum of the core units down a little bit. So the army composition can be a little bit different. And especially like in clones, for instance, it can change your army composition because you don't have to dedicate nearly as much of your army to actual clone troopers. So you can, there's sort of different army compositions that work in Skirmish that just don't work in standard games of Legion.
That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, Skirmish is the reason that I actually painted my clone ATRTs and not just left them on the shelf as Great Legion members forever and ever.
Yeah, it's one of the few units in this game that I actually haven't purchased.
Yeah, I got 2, and that's exactly as many as you need for Skirmish. And there's a reason I got 2 for Skirmish.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, and like the objective cards, deployment stuff, they're usually pretty analogous to cards that you find in the standard game. The only one that's completely sort of out of left field, there's an elimination scenario, which is just straight up kill your enemy or defeat them in Legion talk.
Sure.
And the only interesting thing about that tactically is so everything counts for 1 point destroyed, except for commanders, operatives, and heavies. They count as 2 points. So it adds a little bit of interesting play in like turn 0. Oh, I have like, if you had a list that was like a commander, operative, 2 core, and a heavy somehow, you wouldn't want to be playing elimination because there's way more points you could be losing out of your list because of the scenario.
And also, I guess, that objective specifically incentivizes smaller, more powerful, or larger, more powerful units.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, like
because they're harder to eliminate.
Right.
Exactly.
Does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. I was like, smaller number of units generally, it sounds like, are good for that objective just because there's less stuff to shoot, right?
Yeah, and that objective specifically helps tamp down on like super high activation lists. Like in Skirmish, I consider a typical list to be about 6 activations. So low activations is 5, high activations is 7 or more. You can get to 8 activations pretty comfortably in some like Empire and Empire Rebels and Separatists can all get to 8 activations pretty reliably, but then you have a bunch of really squishy units. So elimination helps keep the tamp on that a little bit.
What sort of like strategy considerations are different for Skirmish versus the normal format?
Well, because everything is so close, you do need to be very careful of like in deployment, because basically the armies can shoot at each other immediately. So if you're playing a gunline list, find cover, because otherwise you could just lose your army on turn 1 if you deploy out in the open. So you also, in that case, deployment's also very important, because like in a standard game of Legion, you're deploying one after each other and you can see where your enemy's deploying, and that can change where you deploy. But in Skirmish, it really changes it, because suddenly, oh, they can shoot me from there. I need to put my other units over here. It also makes like recon intel pretty powerful, because those deployment zones can be pretty small. So like leaving them to find cover is pretty important. This is also another place where like the new droid reinforcements card could be real fun, because suddenly if you're dropping 40 units, so if you have, it's like 6 activations, they have to put their entire army down, and then you're putting your basically entire army down so you can deploy around them. And like, oh, there's this one spot that if you shoot down it, it's open shot. I'm gonna put my entire army down that lane. So it just opens up a few different strategies kind of get amplified in Skirmish, which makes it a little bit unbalanced, some would say, a different game. But yeah, it just amplifies a few different situations and strategies that make it a whole different beast in itself.
Yeah, that super tac 3-pip seems kind of silly when it's half your army instead of, a third of it.
Well, it'd be probably more than half, because you're probably, if you have a super tac, you're probably going to have a 6-act list, maybe 7 acts. So it's going to be over half your list.
Yep. It's kind of silly.
Yeah. Any other overall questions?
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go for it, man.
I was going to just say what units are good in Skirmish.
Assault units overall. Like a lot of units that if you say like unit X, it's not good because it can't get there. Well, it's getting there because it's already there in Skirmish. So like flamethrower units, like fleet troopers with heavies, super or B2 battle droids are kind of nuts.
Yeah, I was going to say those are normally good. Like,
yeah, if an assault unit that's already good is usually amplified, and like assault units that it can't get there, well, they get playable. And then units that want to stay afar generally go down a lot in value. Like strike teams are still cheap activations, but generally they can be shot by any other unit. They don't have the safety of being way behind your lines. So it's just a detractor on them. I really like flamethrowers for skirmish because you don't see them nearly as often in regular games, and you just run up and flame stuff.
Yeah, we used to see them all the time. Unfortunately, that's not really a thing anymore.
The times they have changed.
Yeah, they have.
Probably my favorite 2 units, and that's the list that I'm going to bring to the skirmish tournament is in skirmish is clone ATRTs and Wookiees. Because the clone ATRT, so I sort of did a bunch of calculations / running people around on TTS. With the clone ATRT, if you deploy it as close to your enemy's objective as possible, scout 1, and then do a speed 2 move, you're in range 1 of their deployment zone on every single deployment in skirmish. So a deploy, scout, move, shoot is always possible. And clone ATRTs on top of that also just have a good rocket launcher on board. So they, between Wookiee bowcasters and clone ATRTs, you can deal with pretty much any armor in the game.
So it's not like a huge downside to give them a flamethrower, A, because it's going to be in range really fast, but also B, unlike the Rebel Trooper version, they have a very capable secondary weapon at range.
Precisely. Yeah. If you just need to, if you end up deciding that you just want to sit back and shoot from afar, well, now you have 2 pierce weapons, 2 naked squads that whatever, and then 2 RTs that can still force saves.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Do you want me to go just through some sample lists that I've put together?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Cool. I'll try to. There's a bunch. I wrote an article about skirmish, so that's obviously on the blog. So a bunch of, or I'll try to cover the list I'm running and then one other one I came up with since. That's a good idea. They're both Republic, but
it's okay. Best faction is best faction, you know?
Yeah. So actually, I'll do the one that. Oh no, I'll do this one first because I have to build the other one I get in my head. Okay, so the one I'm bringing, so to my compatriots in Winnipeg, you can come, let's scout. 2 ATRTs with flamethrowers, nothing else. 1 unit of Wookiee warriors with a bowcaster, offensive push, tenacity, and recon intel. 2 naked phase 1s because you have to bring them, and then a Wookiee chieftain with vigilance, seize the initiative, tenacity, recon intel. And then the command cards are just the 3 generic. Like ambush, push, assault, and then the 3 Wookiee cards, which I will not try to pronounce.
I would like to hear you try and. I had to do this on our cast, so let's hear your.
Oh, it's already been tried, so yeah. I'm gonna just stay out of it. The one consideration you could make for this list is dropping a bowcaster to a battle shield, because then you could put a comms jammer on a ATRT, but I want the bowcaster because it's fun, and I have one painted.
That's important.
Yeah. It was interesting. I played this list. I've played this list twice in person now. The difference between the new Wookiee sculpts and the old Wookiee sculpts, visually, pretty similar. When you're moving around the table, much more weight in the originals.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because they're solid plastic, whereas the new ones are hollow because they're hard plastic. So my ability to just knock them over was pretty high. So because they're very top heavy.
Put washers on those bases.
Yeah. It's or just nickels. That's my favorite. There's 5 cents a model. Oh well.
Wow, this guy's rich over here, just throwing nickels on his.
I mean, we don't have pennies anymore because we got rid of them.
What a weird, fanciful country you live in.
Okay, just give me a second because I gotta rebuild this list because it was actually really good.
While you're doing that, how what is the size comparison on the new Wookiee models versus the old ones?
Pretty similar. The new ones are a little bit beefier, just because they're poses, but like on the table, like no difference. So like if you're worried about, oh, I have a bunch of old Wookiees, should I get all new sculpts so they don't look different? Don't, because it's all the same basically. Which was nice.
The only reason that you'd want to get a bunch of new Wookiees is if you want the new. I guess you need the cards, right?
Yeah, there's the cards, and like so if you're a person who isn't worried about cards, you really only need 2 boxes of new Wookiees because each box can make 2 of each heavy weapon. So if you get 2 boxes, you'll have more than enough sculpts for all the heavy weapons you could need in any combination. So that's what I did. I had a unit of old Wookiees, like 1 box of old Wookiees. So I just got 2 boxes of new Wookiees, and then I now have sculpts for anything.
Gotcha.
That's a good tip. Because I'm not gonna lie, I am seriously considering getting some Gar Wookiees, primarily for the sculpts, but also because then I could run a Gar Wookiee list.
Can we talk about just real quick? I think we had a conversation on this podcast probably no less than 3 months ago, but maybe a little bit farther than 3 months. And I recall Kyle saying something to the effect of, I've played Empire, I've played Rebels, I've played Separatists. You know what is too much for me? A 4th faction.
I do remember that.
I just wanna really put the nose to the grindstone here. Kyle, are you saying you're gonna get a 4th faction?
I mean, it's not really a 4th faction if they're just cross-faction units, right?
I mean, it depends.
I'll make a math joke here. You can Kyle's max amount of factions is just X-1, where X is the total number of factions in the game.
There we go. So as soon as Shadow Collective comes out, so here's the thing though, he's totally gonna play Shadow Collective because 100% in it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not sure how long that formula is gonna hold true, but I'm willing to wager it's X-1 or greater.
Oh, there you go. There's the
greater than or equal to X
minimum X-1. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just buying the Wookiees, it's not like, I guess you need some phase 1s too, don't you? Technically.
You need 3 phase 1s.
All right, we'll see what happens. Can you run the Wookiee chieftain from the Wookiee box?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just made 3 bowcasters because the bowcaster model and the chieftain are the same sculpt. You just can add a few things. Like that's where you add like the swords on the back to dignify him.
But you can make both, right? Like you don't have to choose.
Yeah. So out of 1 box, so like if you have 1 box, you can make a bowcaster and a chieftain. And if you get 2 boxes, you can make 3 bowcasters and a chieftain.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, you can make, so it's once you see once you get the spread and see all the instructions, it makes a lot more sense. But basically each body of a Wookiee has a like standard guy option and a heavy weapon option. And then there's 3 different bodies and then just duplicates of those bodies. So you get 6 bodies total, but only 3 unique bodies, and then you put the arms and the head on it to make it unique. So
yeah, we're getting very much in the Games Workshop territory here, right?
Love it. I'm loving it. I
love it.
Jay says same. Wow, I thought you were gonna say the opposite. Good.
No.
We've had over the last couple of weeks.
Well, listen, I like the options. I did like the softer plastic based on dropping. And storing and keeping. They harder plastics tend to get a little chippy.
The one funny thing though is GW is like with their new Stormcast line is all 1 monopose miniatures.
Really?
Yeah, the new I don't know about the orcs, but all the Stormcast like of the Dominion box is like there's a few options, but it's not posable.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well, so I don't know if this is true of the 40K stuff, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the intro boxes for 40K, at least a few of them, were also single pose.
Yeah, so the Dominion box, which is the intro box, is that, but I got one of the new like individual, like it's a chariot that it comes as itself, and it also was like basically monopose.
Interesting.
So, and they're like, maybe they're just making a few of the intro units monopose, but yeah, I'm kind of okay with it because I assembled a bunch of Temple Guard and was ready to lose my fingers because of how stabbed I got. But yeah, it was, they're kind of doing opposite directions right now between AMG and GW.
Well, I do think to some extent, not to go too far off topic here, they're kind of they need to reach in opposite directions, right? Like Games Workshop very much needs to cater more towards the audience that like Legion caters to, and Legion wants to also cater towards like they're reaching towards each other's audiences. I think is a little bit of what's going on there.
Turns out, I think most miniatures people like a model that is fairly easy to put together but has a few options. I think that's a pretty good standard that most of the companies are trying to reach to. It's like, oh, we'll give you a body and it goes together in 2 pieces, and then you have like 3 different heads you can put on it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like all my Space Marine kits, man. They were so awesome. Like just from like they're not super complicated, but there's so many different poses and stuff you can put all the Space Marines in, and all the kits are interchangeable, so you can kit bash very easily. I know, Jay, you talked about that on, I think, TFT a couple of weeks back. But yeah, I definitely wish like Clone Troopers were kit bashable to some extent. You know,
I just wish they had ball sockets, like, or at least a few of them. Like even just if it were like the unit leaders and like 1 or 2 guys had ball sockets, so at least you could make the unit leaders,
you know,
like, individualized.
I agreed with you for a half second there, but I want to take that back because looking back on it, I remember having to hold those ball sockets in place for so long because they don't just like, it's not like the models we have now where you just plug them in and they like kind of stay. You know, you gotta hold a 40K model.
I have my techniques though. I have a few different containers that are all like slightly different heights. So I like put it together, put the arm where I want it, and then just rest it on the container at whatever height it needs to be. Leave it for about a minute, and then it's done.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's fair. It's been like 5 years since I put together a Warhammer model. So
Warhammer is it's fun.
It's your side piece.
Whoa, he was going to say something really strong there. He forgot he was on a Legion podcast. Go ahead. What's 40K?
No, not 40K.
What?
AOS.
Oh, Warhammer. AOS. Oh, all right. What's AOS?
Well, the funny thing is, Legion was my side piece, and it's become the main piece, and now AOS is the X that won't stop calling.
That's fair. So I gotta ask. Just for our viewers at home that may not be familiar with the Warhammer universe or what's going on with the rule sets. So 40K has this cool rule set called Crusade that I really want to get into. It's like a narrative thing where you get to like build your army and it changes over time and stuff. Does Sigmar have something like that?
Sigmar has Path to Glory, which I admission I have never actually played it. But as far as like each battle tome / codex comes with its own Path to Glory rules and stuff, and like so you like choose a hero and they upgrade and stuff. And I know there's people that do play it religiously, but I don't know too much about it because I don't partake.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to look into it. It's my speed for sure. So I definitely am into that sort of thing. So I was curious because I couldn't find anything online about like Age of Sigmar Crusade, and I figured it was probably called something else, you know.
Yeah, well, it's probably also garbled because there's a whole new book coming out that's the Dawnbringer Crusades, but that's a battle tome, not a campaign or anything.
So is a battle tome a codex? Just
yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's same thing, different words.
And for those of you at home that don't know what a codex is, unlike our friends here at Asmodee, Games Workshop does not give you rules for free. You've got to buy $50 books for every faction you have, and for some you got to buy multiple. So for instance, my Space Wolves, I've got a $50 Space Marine Codex in addition to the $50 rule book, and then I have the Space Wolves Codex supplement book, which is like another $35 or something.
The thing I've been into, so I'm getting into Kill Team, and the sneaky thing they're doing now is in order to sell their White Dwarf magazines, they're putting the Kill Teams in the magazine.
Oh,
Yeah.
So they're putting now that like between AOS 2 and AOS 3, there's a bunch of errata. A lot of the errata is going in White Dwarf for AOS.
So as much as that kind of feels a little, I love the concept of White Dwarf.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if I was super into Warhammer, I would consider a White Dwarf subscription, but I just don't play it enough to make it worth it.
Yeah.
I used to have one. I mean,
A White Dwarf subscription.
Yeah, I dig the concept also.
Yeah.
For a while they kind of got away from it, but they're back to it being like there's tons of interesting hobby stuff in there. Anyway, this is not a White Dwarf advertisement. Paid for by GW.
They've made it. Do you know almost every episode of the Fifth Trooper podcast this season we've talked about GW as well. So it's because Evan and I are playing Kill Team.
I'm sure they'll send us a check or something.
When our community is getting as much outreach from the Warhammer devs as the AMG was.
All right. We almost made it.
We had a good run there, Kyle. We didn't say anything. Here we are.
Timbo, Timbo. See, I did it. I almost did it.
You're the worst.
Tim, you have you found that skirmish list you were trying to put together?
It took me all I had to build it, but it took me all of 30 seconds to do. So this entire time I've been had it ready. Just listen to the Warhams talk. Anyway, so this is a list that came out of teaching a Padawan what Force users can do, which ended up being slicing a bunch of snowtroopers and Iden in half. But that's an aside. So it's Obi-Wan Kenobi with Force Push, Force Barrier, Vigilance, and Tenacity. The training slot in Obi-Wan is kind of your own taste. I'm a Tenacity boy because I like my Obi-Wan to have some punch. Although in this game he didn't take any wounds, so didn't need it. Woohoo! Anyway, so then Obi-Wan Phase 1 clone troopers with 5s and a Phase 1 clone specialist, because the 6-man 5s unit is quite a drug. Throwing 8 black dice is fun. And then a Phase 2 with a Z6, one I should say Z6 because I am Canadian. Whoops. Phase 1 clone troopers just naked, and then ARC Trooper Strike Team with a sniper. So that's 5 activations, 500 points. And basically it's 1 to 2 turns of sitting back, shooting, and then Obi-Wan goes ham and just jumps into the middle of the board and starts killing things. So, and that's like a pretty good archetype for skirmish. If you want to play a like Force user list, is like Force user with like 2 or 3 shooty units, shoot for the first turn or 2, and then jump into the middle and start cutting things. Because especially everything is so close together. If you can find a piece of like LOS blocking terrain that's like a quarter of the way up the board, you can get all the way into their deployment zone with like 3 moves. So it's pretty easy to get your Force user into melee there.
Yeah, I think it, you want to get in there early for a variety of reasons, but I mean the fact that you lose a turn I think is a big one, right?
Yeah, like in more normal Legion, you kind of want your Force user, if you want to be hitting things with them, you want them to start hitting things like turn 3, but in skirmish that's actually turn 2 because there's not a 6th turn. So that's a bit of a paradigm shift that I've seen a few times, like in watching a few skirmish games, where people who are way more used to standard Legion kind of feel rushed at the end. Like they're like slow rolling towards the objective for turn 6, but turn 6 doesn't exist. So when you're sort of counting your moves to get to objectives and stuff, you're losing 2 moves off the end. So you just got to sort of shift everything a turn ahead in your mind.
That's super helpful because I'm always like a late objective contester.
Yeah.
So I would be definitely one of those people where I had to play a skirmish game.
Yeah. Like Breach is basically the breakthrough objective. And it's always like, oh, it's turn 3. I'm 5 moves from the deployment zone. It's like, well, actually I need like 2 turns of double moving.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference, I think, just in timing and figuring out where you're at.
Yeah. And then, like I said, like arc strike. So like this is a good example. The arc strike team, arcs are really good, but in skirmish, you can just any unit can really reach out and touch it. So trying to keep them safe is not easy. So yeah, it's always
Seems like strike teams in general would be pretty bad in skirmish.
I like rebel and Imperial strike teams, especially because of white saves. So basically, unless you're just going for a ton of acts, I wouldn't bring them. But like BXs and arcs at least have that red save. So
I mean, Sabs probably get a lot better though, right?
yeah, it's a yes, but will be my answer. Yes, they get better, but you also lose the setup phase in a way. Like I think in my head at least, Sabs, you want to like get up the board quick and then start throwing things before the battle like truly engages.
Sure.
Whereas in skirmish, the battle engages immediately. So if you're someone who's going to use Sabs like in a firefight, right, where you like run up, throw things at things that are already shooting, cool. But if you're trying to, there's not really enough time to like run up, throw some bombs, and then fall back and blow them up. As well as you're limited to 2 special forces, so you can only bring 2 sabotage squads. Whereas so you can't really have one team that like stays back hidden to like hold the detonator.
Oof.
So yeah, they're different. The like typical sabotage, like the typical sab units, I think you can't run them the same way. In the same breath, like Sabine gets really fun.
Turn 1 explosions, anyone?
Well, one game what I did with Sabine is I turn 1 jump up on a rock, gunslinger. Turn 2 gunslinger, throw bombs, jump down, or moved to the back of the rock. So I killed 4 bodies with her guns and then blew up the enemy's army in the first 2 activations of her game.
Seems pretty
Yeah,
good.
that sounds gross.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Fun.
it's things like that like it makes skirmish just this like you have to sort of have a little bit of a different mindset, both in strategic but also just in like there's less units, there's less things on the table. A few bad dice rolls in a standard game Legion can lose you a game, but a few bad dice rolls in skirmish can like really lose you a game.
Yeah.
It feels, I mean, clearly there are a lot of similarities here, but it feels closer to X-Wing, I feel like.
Yeah. I've never played X-Wing, so I
Sure.
cannot comment so much. But in what I have seen of X-Wing, I would say kind of yeah. You're engaged immediately. It's a dogfight. Have fun.
Yeah.
The few games that I've played, Evan and I think we played it right as soon as the rules came out. We might have done a stream. It's probably on our YouTube channel. And I think it completely changes the dynamics, right? And Tim, you're right. Like when you think about standard Legion game, you're kind of waiting to the end for these objective runs. But with skirmish, yeah, you're right in the mix early on. And I think I brought like a Vader double dewback list, which was just ridiculous in skirmish. It was just crushing things. And so, before bursts of speed and whatever potential changes Vader's going to have, it made Vader feel like Vader, because he was like in it and killing things within, by turn 2, which was really nice.
Yeah. Just like I was saying, like assault units, the units that like they're not good because they can't get there. Well, Vader. But burst of speed Vader in skirmish is also going to be fun.
I think burst of speed on any force user in skirmish is going to be kind of stupid.
Yeah, just like turn 1. Hello, how are you?
Hello. Turn 1 burst of speed Obi-Wan into hello there. Literally.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So yeah, there's tons of crazy things you can do. Did you have any more questions about skirmish? Because I'm terrible at answering questions or not answering questions and just talking sometimes.
That's good. Tim, this is a podcast. We talk.
Yeah. Objective complete.
Yeah. No, it sounds fun. I'll definitely have to try it sometime. the 2 games in a short time period thing is appealing to me because I have relatively limited Legion time available. So
It's also like especially if you're playing against someone who's also is like, we're gonna play games quick and we're gonna get through them. I could easily see you doing like 3 games in a like 3.5, 4 hour time frame.
Yeah, I definitely
Legion.
think. Yeah, I think it could be good for like for veteran players to just like get like significant reps in with like force users and figure out how to actually use them and stuff, like when to take standbys, when not to take standbys, and things like that. Most of the concepts still apply, even though it's less punishing if you mess up.
It's also especially just a good place to practice melee just in general, because like in a standard game, melee may or may not happen, whereas in like if you want to practice melee and like melee ordering and stuff, yeah, skirmish is the place to go because things are going to be in melee.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really important thing to point out, specifically in when we're talking about like competitive Legion generally. If you asked, I think most people that play the game of Legion that maybe don't use melee units a ton and are not used to using melee units a ton, how often their units should be like meleeing each other during a game, it'd be very small. But I think a lot of the competitive Legion players like understand that melee is a tool to prevent your opponent from moving, right? In a lot of, or interacting with an objective or things like that. And I think that this might be a good arena to kind of learn the ins and outs of those intricacies of, you know, just like melee, just kind of like seeing melee options on the table.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
It's also like, and speaking of veteran players too, it's also a good time. Like a lot of people who are very competitive sometimes like struggle to have a little bit of fun, casual games of Legion because your mind, like when I mean that, like just show up at a store and like, I don't really care. I'm just gonna throw some models around, throw some dice. If you're playing skirmish, I found it lets my like, because it's a different frame of reference. You can sort of try to get your like, it's easier to like have a more casual game, just because it's not the thing you're practicing for Worlds for instance.
Yeah, I get that. I one of the things, like when I'm playing like an 800 point game of Legion, I'm kind of like always on because I don't want to like form a bad habit, you know. And so like a format where you can just kind of like throw your stuff on the table and roll some dice, that has some appeal.
God, I am never worried about that. I was like thinking about that when you said that. I'm like, that is literally never on my mind.
I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah, I just, you know, when I play an 800 point game of Legion, I just like, I don't, unless I'm like innovating, I'm like gonna intentionally not make moves that I think are suboptimal. Whereas like in a skirmish game, I could see me just like YOLOing, you know.
Well, and also when
that's how I play.
I understand. I'm trying to be sensitive.
But when you build up to a move for 2.5 hours, like, so it's like, and like last turn making these moves, if you've built up to it for 2.5 hours versus building up to it for like 45 minutes to an hour, there's a lot, like making a mistake in the final turn doesn't feel nearly as bad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was sort of what I was talking about before with like, you know, you can kind of like throw your force users in and kind of start feeling the reps and understanding the complexities of those situations without the 2 hours of jockeying for position that happened before the big cinematic moment, you know. Because I do think that that's a nice thing about Legion, is that there almost always is a big cinematic moment. If you're playing like Legion properly, it's just a question of when it happens.
Yeah, and you know, especially with something like a force user where your margin for error is super low, like it kind of can ruin your practice if you make one mistake and you just spent 3 hours and then you make one mistake that leaves them out 2 sheets to the wind for a couple of activations and they get shot and die. Like you learned the lesson on that one mistake, but it took 3 hours to learn it, where you could have learned it twice or even 3 times in the same time period, doing skirmish with re-racks, basically, like you said. So
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
well, I pretty much blacklined this entire T47.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm such a hobby noob. I don't even know what you mean by blacklined.
Is this wow, this is not good with the, you see the black lines in there?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
hard way
like,
to do it.
What's yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did use a wash to do it, so that makes it a little bit easier.
Okay, yeah, that's
But yeah, you still have to, like, especially like this is white. This is going to be a white T47. So not very much.
Oh.
So let me ask you this: did you, not to get super off topic here, but did you like base coat that before you did the blacklining?
I did, yeah. So if you look, sorry, this is kind of horrible with the background thing, but you see how there's like a slightly different, like the white is more, it's more white near the edges of the T47, and it's less white like in the center near the back.
Is that because it's like about to crash?
No, so when you're yeah, it's about to crash. I see what you did there. When you're doing like here we go. This is better. There we go. That's worse.
No,
That's considerably
that
worse.
is worse.
For those of you listening to the audio only version of this podcast,
Okay, there we
this is
go.
real
You
interesting.
can see my messy sorry. This is impromptu hobby segment, Jay. So if you paint a vehicle with an airbrush where you can like easily do a gradient, you want the lighter color. There's basically 2 ways you can do it. You can either choose like a focus area, which on like a tank or something, that's going to be like the front of the turret, and you can sort of push the colors towards that area where it's like lighter near the turret and it's darker away from the turret, if that makes sense. And then for something like this, which is, a T47 is literally just like a wedge, you want the lighter colors to be closer to the front and the edges of it, and then the darker colors toward the back, because it gives like the visual appearance of movement, if that makes sense.
So like it's crashing.
Like it's crashing, or like it's flying heroically, Mike. And that's super easy to do with an airbrush, because an airbrush gives you like, it's essentially like auto gradient. Use a couple different colors, but basically, like I just did, like I base coated it black, and then I did gray over it, leaving some of the areas near the back slightly more black than gray, and then I did the white on the edges of it, and that's it. And if you're using an airbrush, it does that like fade for you sort of automatically. It's not quite the right term, because you still need to like finagle it with the trigger and all that, but it's a lot easier than to do blending or any craziness like that. So yeah, makes painting vehicles that way ridiculously easy.
This is a similar technique they use on the Disney castle to make it look taller.
Oh, interesting. So
It's actually short, but people don't realize that when they get up to it, it looks much taller because of the way they paint it.
And also the floor heights, as you
Mhm.
go up in height, like the windows at the top are very small.
Yep.
Just to give aspect ratio.
Interesting. It's an optical illusion.
Yeah. Isn't everything in life really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm Googling pictures of it right now.
yeah, I'm genuinely curious. While we're doing that, Tim, you want to tell us about the Kashyyyk units that you actually put on the table?
Yeah. What did I put on the table? I have put so the only ones I've put on the table in real life so far are the Wookiees in the Republic. So the Wookiees in the Republic are pretty similar to the Rebel ones. I've also run the new shooting Wookiees in Rebels, but that was proxying a little bit back in the day. But love them both. Turns out if you put a bunch of shooting Wookiees with targeting scopes, offensive pushes, and buses together, it gets good real quick.
Gross. That's gross.
Yeah, let's shoot 8 dice with 2 aims and precise 1, and you can even do 3 aims if you do 2 buses and force like 4 to 5 saves with Pierce 1. Gets real fun. So that's a thing. The Wookiees in Republic are interesting in regular games as like a one of melee threat, like dealing with a melee threat for on the cheap, which we're probably gonna have to start doing. So there's that. But my sort of favorite character that I like, the chieftain himself. So I knew like he seemed good, but then I actually ran him and went, oh, he feels a lot better than I thought. Because he's a single model. He can throw 4 black dice with surge to hit with his bowcaster, and he has agile 1. And the agile 1 is what made him feel really fun, because you sort of run him up with the Wookiees, and it's like, oh, do I shoot this Wookiee squad with 12 wounds, or this Wookiee chieftain with 7? He doesn't degrade at all, and he also has 1 to 2 dodges. And on like the Wookiee 2-pip turn, he's gonna have like 3 to 4 dodges. So it sort of adds another threat, and he can also like his saber swing, so like his swords are double rainbow. So you throw tenacity on there, and suddenly he's 3 red, 2 black, 2 white. He's gonna have an aim probably, and then duelist. So
Yeah, he basically punches an ATST dice pool.
well, it's Obi-Wan's lightsaber with 1 less pierce value.
That's an accurate way to put it.
Yeah. And he has scale and stuff. So, and because he's a single mini, he can do the like force user thing of like hiding behind small rocks instead of like a whole unit. Like it's like, oh, this side of the table, I can't hide a whole unit of Wookiees, but I can hide a single model. So I'll run the chieftain up this side and the full unit up this side, so they can both stay hidden on their approach. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
I also want to try Chewbacca in Republic. I was thinking that because Chewbacca is cheaper than the chieftain, which is interesting. But now that I've played, because I played Chewie in Rebels, and now that I've played the chieftain, I actually understand the price difference now. It was like a thing that I couldn't, because Chewie has 2 more wounds, but those dodges are doing money for you. That's the
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, those dodges are effectively like wounds.
Yes,
basically.
exactly. Yeah, basically you just know like he's gonna move, shoot, or move or whatever. So and he has I think vigilance is a pretty much auto take on him, so that he's gonna pretty reliably have 1 to 2 dodges on him at any given time, so that him getting 1 shot is pretty impossible unless it's like a clone fire support. And then even he should probably be able to stand up to like 2 or 3 shots, even if he's sort of like not out in the open, but like in heavy cut. Like if he steps out to shoot, he should be able to take a few shots back pretty easily. So
I dig that. I want to run like a clone Wookiee list pretty badly, but I at the end of, I always am like, all right, Wookiee chieftain, Chewbacca, let's throw some like triple Wookiee warriors in here, and I get to the core units and I'm like, I don't want to take any of this.
Yeah, because you're basically talking about, I've spitballed lists like this since I'm playing Republic for Elims, and it's essentially, you know, those Wookiee units you mentioned, and then you got to take like 4 phase 1s and R2.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just want to take more Wookiees.
Yeah.
But I can't.
And when you're taking 4 phase 1s, all those token, like you have a token sharing battery going, but nothing to spend those tokens.
Right.
So it's like 150, you basically have a 156 point battery no matter what. So you either then spend the remaining 650 points on things that use the battery or don't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could like give them like electro binoculars or portable scanners, but then they start getting expensive.
Yeah.
And they're already kind of expensive, frankly.
Yeah. My biggest wish for Gar is a like 45 point rebel trooper. because then you could just run the things in guard that aren't clone troopers with a slightly cheaper core thing.
Yeah, I could dig that. I definitely would like to see like a, if we like a Wookiee unit that has like a B2-esque profile, maybe would be okay. Doesn't need charge. Maybe it's like Wookiee civilians. I don't know.
Is that
Whatever.
a thing? Do those exist?
I have no idea. I'm just like, yeah.
I kind of picture like all Wookiees as being fully capable of ripping your arms off and or picking up a bowcaster and shooting.
Well, just because they have the name just because it's a civilian doesn't mean they're not lethal. That's why they're still as good as B2,
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
Maybe Wookiee militia, maybe. How
there you
about
go. Wookiee militia instead of a Wookiee warrior. Wookiee redneck.
There you go. Yeah, I'm excited for the Republic Wookiees. I hope that a Republic Wookiee list is a thing, and it's not just like, well, the best way to use Wookiees is just as a one of in a Rex list, which might very well be the case. I could see. I mean, there's some really interesting uses of take that clankers with those ranged Wookiees.
I saw some of that. I don't know what exactly it was, but it was actually kind of cool. It was, it's cool.
You can essentially like slot in the ranged Wookiees into a Rex Star like you would with an Arc Star, instead of Arc Strikes, and then they're also not bad in melee. So call me Captain plus Wookiees. As a melee counter, not bad. So
yeah, like I use in my sort of rebel shooty wooks list, my melee counter was the shooty wooks, and I have 4 soldiers in my list. Well, I'm just gonna surround them with 24 wounds of Wookiees and just keep bopping them on the head until they finally die.
Yep, exactly.
So it's a thing.
All right, you guys got any other thoughts?
Sorry, I'm in the middle of building the Clone Captain Rex Wookiee Warriors list.
I posted like 5 of them in our chat over the last week.
Yeah, I was busy shipping Stormtide.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle.
I'm just saying, scroll back up,
The me and Mike here, we're talking about 5s, like
Oh man.
We're just losing.
Timbo.
Well, you guys were talking about 5s, but I guess that's over. So
I actually wasn't sure where he was going with that.
I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hey, there he is.
Not by video. He's not. Just
Hey,
audio
still frozen.
only.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Hey.
All right. So you were saying something about us talking about 5s.
Yeah. So the 6-man 5s unit is a drug, and part of the drug for me now is you get a clone aim battery going, which won't be a thing soon, but then you run a 6-man 5s unit into melee with, for instance, Darth Vader, and guarantee yourself 6 hits, and then do it again the next turn.
And then fire support it with Call Me Captain, because why not?
If you have Rex, then yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. I've dealt with a few Darth Vaders in my line by just running up to him and hitting him in the head multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, just clones with aim tokens are still pretty good in melee. At least for now.
For now. That strategy will...
Yeah, I guess did we talk about that last episode?
We did.
Okay.
Maybe 2 episodes ago, but we did talk about it.
Yeah.
You mean the token sharing thing that they
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, we did.
So I know there was some Invader League announcements that I think I missed maybe today or yesterday. Or is token sharing dead for Invader League?
No. The only changes in Invader League, unless the RRG drops, is the turn 0 deployment stuff.
Okay.
Like red player choose 4 cards and red player chooses side.
You know what I was thinking about, just as a last topic here?
Sure.
I was thinking about Tauntauns a lot lately. and
Okay.
I think they're still really good. And I think we just forgot about them because, other things. And so the other day I was building a list. This list is ridiculous, but I wanted to say it out loud because I think it may be interesting. So you have Leia, you have 3 naked rebel troopers, you have 2 Tauntaun riders with tenacity and HQ uplinks, you have 3 Wookiee warriors, and an AA5 speeder truck with reckless driver, backworld medic, unorthodox tactician, the quad laser, and HQ uplink. And so basically the idea would be you just maybe put one of the Wookiees in the bus, have the other ones follow up behind it, get in cover from it, and then have the Tauntauns flank and just like basically move a majority of your army into your opponent's lines and just be like, all right, deal with this. And then have the bus be shooting things and healing things while it's in there.
I actually think you make the list slightly more degenerate. Just take a rebel officer instead of Leia and take R2 and put him in the bus to get secret mission.
There you go.
You could do that. I really liked the idea of the No Time for Sorrow's turn with Leia and the Wookiees and the get that extra move or something. But yeah, I see what you're saying too.
No Time for Sorrows also lost a little bit of value because they changed, like, you don't get dodge tokens on the Tauntauns with it anymore. So it lost a little bit of its luster there.
Yeah, with the agile change.
Yeah, I do like the extra movement though. Like especially
sure.
if you're trying to get 5 units in the melee. Well, one of them may be on the bus, so 4 units in the melee, and you're like, you know what? Here's an extra move, pal.
I mean, you can also like when whatever the points, various things were dropped. I immediately put together 3 Tauntauns, 3 Wookiees, and sent it to my team's group chat because it was a lot.
Yeah.
Running 6 units of fur at your opponent and saying deal with it could be good.
I mean, you faced that in round robin, didn't you, Mike? Triple Wookiee, triple Tauntaun.
That's it. You caught me looking up Path to Glory rules.
Everybody's just phoning it in on this podcast.
Sorry. I was like half listening because I was reading about Path to Glory. I was interested. Anyways, yeah, I did. I dropped a game to it. I mean, like I said, I was playing Kenobi Star. It's only 9 activations. That list just hits the W button, and sometimes it just runs you. Honestly, here's the thing: like melee Wookiees with Pierce are just really good against clones. Like there's not, once they get in there. And the issue with Kenobi over Rex is that you lose a turn of shooting at them before they hit you. Unfortunately. And
Kenobi himself doesn't throw enough dice to deal with that many wounds.
Yeah, Call Me Captain is a much better answer than anything Kenobi's really got going on from dealing with sheer volume. So yeah, what do you do? Happens. I'm not gonna play Kenobi for Elims. That much I do know. As much as I would love to.
Yeah.
All right, well, gentlemen, anyone have any final thoughts?
No.
Hopefully, what are we gonna call this episode? We can't call it like points update. I don't know.
Wall of Fur.
We'll call it. Okay. All right. We'll see. I'll think of something. Wookiees. Yeah, I'll think of something. No, I don't have anything else though.
Chewie is my co-pilot.
Right there.
That was apt.
Yeah. Yeah, good luck to everyone in that's going to SoCal and Invader Elims.
Yeah, have fun there. It's good. Real tournaments are good. So have a good time, everyone.
You said that with such enthusiasm.
Winding it down, buddy. It's been a long day.
Yeah. That's
All right.
All
Well, how
right.
about we close it out then? We got
Please.
the notorious Scoundrels and Kyle.
Mike.
I'm Jay.
I'm Tim.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.